Shalom, everyone. Without a doubt, the most interesting, mysterious, and controversial subject in our Christian faith is undoubtedly the rapture. It's a resurrection event that happens before Messiah, Christ's return. But here's my disclaimer. As a follower of Messiah Yeshua, Jesus, I believe the Torah and the New Testament, the Brit Hadashah, strongly signals a rapture type event. And I still believe that this is going to be a pre-tribulation event. However, I'm preparing my watchfulness to be ready for anything. But searching for a framework connected with the patterns of Torah and the sages of Israel, I haven't found anyone teaching or explaining the process or patterns, with the exception that most Messianic communities agree. Paul tells us in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 13 through 18, an event's going to take place where followers of Yeshua are snatched up and transformed, given immortal bodies. Now, if we're going to receive John's revelation and Paul's telling of the mystery concerning the rapture, we need to think as first century believers during temple times. We seem to forget that the disciples lived during times in Israel when culture, education, and society was at its zenith of Torah consciousness. There was a height of understanding, and every Jew was engrafted with the oral Torah. John was among the disciples in Acts, the book of Acts, who were asking Yeshua, and this is in Acts chapter 1, verse 6. He asks, "Lord, are you restoring the kingdom to Israel at this time?"
As a Jewish follower of Messiah Yeshua, John would have continued patiently waiting for the redemption of mankind to take place in Jerusalem. The Jews believed the redemption of Israel was prophesied with the coming of the Messiah on the earth. Listen to Yeshua's response to the disciples in verse 7. He said to them, "It is not your place to know the times or seasons which the Father has placed under his own control, but you will receive power when the Ruach HaKodesh has come upon you. And you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and through all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth." It isn't until Paul revealed the mystery of the Gentiles, which is the Gentile inclusion of being grafted into Israel, that the apostles left Jerusalem to preach Yeshua to the then known world. Bible scholars tell us John was banished to the island of Patmos by the Romans for his preaching, and this is where he received the revelation of Messiah. John was focused on the redemption of all creation on the earth. He wasn't preaching that followers go to heaven. The first century apostles and believers understood the scriptures through the framework of the Jewish sages of Israel. And the coming of Messiah meant the beginning of a restoration back to Gan Eden. The concept in Hebrew is known as the final Geulah, which in Judaism is when victory over sin in the world is accomplished through the reign of Messiah, a messianic age where Yeshua conquers sin and ultimately death. John's worldview and his preaching focused on loving one another, which makes total sense. We learn that the later sages of Israel in the first century say the temple was destroyed because of baseless hatred. John preached and focused on the completion of redemption in the world of creation. We read this in 1 John 2:17. "And the world is passing away, and the desire of it. The one, however, doing the will of God abides to the age," meaning eternal, forever. Where cosmos is not the physical world as we know it, it's the world of man's morality. And the word age refers to the messianic age going on forever.
It's important to recall John remained in Jerusalem during temple times, observing Judaism with his brothers in the knowledge of Messiah Yeshua. And Paul reminds us in Galatians chapter 2, verse 8, he says, "For the same God who was at work in Peter as an emissary to the Jews also was at work in me as an emissary to the Gentiles." Verse 9, "Realizing the favor that had been given to me, Jacob, Peter, and John, who are the recognized pillars, shook hands in partnership with Barnabas and me so that we would go to the Gentiles and they to the Jews. Now, this doesn't mean that Paul delivered a different message. No. We, the Gentiles, we required someone with a doctorate in the oral Torah, and we had to know what the sages of Israel understood. Paul testifies of himself in Acts chapter 22, verse 3. He says, "I am a Jewish man born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, trained strictly according to the Torah of our fathers, being zealous for God, just as all of you are today." For all intents and purposes, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Paul, the most esteemed sage of Israel, Rav Sha'ul. He was a Hebrew of Hebrews and a Pharisee. So the question then is, how does this impact the Christian evangelical view of the rapture? And do we need to get ready? We invite you to join this investigation with us as we begin to look at the rapture in the framework of Rav Sha'ul's mystery. May the coming of our Messiah and return come soon. Shalom.